complicated sounding word, but actually very simple. It's just because it's in German. So, Bildung. What does it mean? You know what it means? Bildung. Building, right? Developing.
And
Growing. Roma, novel. Book. Okay? So a novel about development, a novel about growth, a novel about the building of a character. And most texts, if not all, tend to fall into this category to a lesser or greater extent. Right? We do expect this growth trajectory. Right? कुछ हुआ life में, crisis is important as well, no? You can't really have a proper story without a crisis. There has to be something somewhere around the middle. Shakespeare's plays they all followed the 5-act structure. All plays had to have 5 acts, and the crisis usually occurred in Act 3, right in the middle. Yes, so the story sort of begins, it builds up to the great moment of crisis. After which, depending on whether it's a tragedy or a comedy, the resolution will work out accordingly. If it's a tragedy, the hero, no heroines unfortunately, hero will kind of get deeper and deeper into this terrible tragic situation from which there is no way out. If it's a comedy, the characters will work out some plans and get out of it. Right? So the moment of crisis is central, literally central. It comes at the center of the text, and this kind of journey, development, growth, as the characters navigate these challenges, is what is a typical narrative structure. As I said, we may not be consciously looking for it, but that is more or less the pattern that is followed in texts, filmic as well as literary. So where does something like this fit in? Admittedly, it's a short story. So we did talk about how a short story does not have that kind of room to, create this kind of well-formed journey. But even then, कुछ तो होना चाहिए ना? There should be some incident, some central kind of core, that you can actually say, this is what this story is about. Right? If someone asks you, इसमें क्या हुआ? मैंने पढ़ी नहीं. जरा बता दे जल्दी से. इसमें क्या होता है? It's very hard to answer that question, right? Because nothing actually happens in this story. What is it broadly kind of putting in juxtaposition? I mean, where does the meaning of this story come from? Narratively, in terms of what constitutes its interest. What is it that is interesting about it? To me, what is interesting about it is this juxtaposition, this contrast between what we imagine or believe an elderly, or not elderly, but aging single woman should be like, and what this character, Rina, actually is. And they are very different. What is our convention? What do you think? What do you think of a woman in her 60s, maybe late 50s, 60s, single, living alone, no family, no children, no husband. Um, what would you normally, I mean, think of her as? Someone who has a conventional sort of life, right? Someone who you wouldn't expect her to be terribly outspoken, because we don't expect older women to be outspoken. We don't expect older women to have very rich, interesting inner lives. In fact, we tend not to think of older women at all. There doesn't seem to be anything much of interest there. But here there is this woman who is quite unabashedly opening up her inner life to the reader. So she's not, she's not embarrassed about her own, the lack in her own life. In fact, she's facing it head on, right? The smallness of her life, the loneliness of her life, as well as the numerous instances she comes across of that give meaning, that give joy, that bring about moments of connection. So it's not all doom and gloom. And it's not a sad story, and it is not a sad life, it is not a sad person. She doesn't have those conventional props, right? The props that we expect, the props of a family, the props of a settled middle class domestic life. She doesn't have those. But her life is very rich. Her inner life is very rich. You can see that she has a really sharp mind. There's a lot of irony that is directed at the world around her. But there is also a lot of self-irony. Right? I mean, she has that clarity, to turn that wicked wit of hers back to herself as well. So this is it's interesting because of the richness that can be contained in the ordinary, in the very, very humdrum and ordinary. And it's also about her irrepressible spirit and wit, which we see instances of all the time, in the narrative itself, the way it is written. The way in which she is able to connect to a range of people across classes. So it's about city life, and if you're open to accepting the city in all its variedness, the dirt and the filth, along with the sudden temporary friendships that it can just create for you. So there's this taxi guy that she meets later, and he's the one who has helped her earlier with carrying a sick dog to the vet. Yeah, and she's taken aback. In this huge city, what are the odds of coming across the same taxi driver? And the taxi driver remembers that, and he asks her about that dog. Right? This unconditional sort of love that she seems to have for animals is for stray dogs and cats and the pet parrots. I mean, that is that's a very kind of enriching aspect of her life and her personality. Her very strong political positions, against the right wing, against this whole tide of anti-Muslim sentiment that is growing in Bombay. Her stand against the sort of sexual morality police, right? People the aunties and uncles who act as the moral police, right? कौन किसके घर जा रहा है, कौन किसके साथ क्या कर रहा है, right? Her sort of very open stand against that. So in that sense, she becomes an interesting character. and a character one wants to read about. Yes, so this is now you may or may not agree with me. You may still feel that this is she doesn't do anything for you. But in terms of, I mean, if one is looking for a justification, why is this worth reading? It's all of these reasons that make it worth reading. So we will go a little quicker today, and I also want at the end to just spend 2 minutes talking about that poem that I've shared with you, and that is also referred to in this in the story. So the morality police we were just talking about, her neighbor. So remember, this is a redeveloped chawl that she lives in. Yes. So here, obviously, her neighbors are not upper class or even upper middle class. Right? These are very ordinary people who previously used to live in this chawl and have, which has been redeveloped. She, on her college lecturer's salary, could only afford a flat in this locality and has therefore been living here. But her neighbors are, as one would expect in a big cosmopolitan city, people from all over the country can be found. So this is, someone from Uttar Pradesh, but of course, she has this great ear for mimicking. She mimics conversations, she mimics accents. So here, her neighbor on the ground floor was what a BBC newscaster called Uttar Pradesh, right? So, of course, there is never any effort from the developed West to try to learn, any other accents other than their own. And we've all seen those films with the British colonial officers. But there's always those white characters, speaking the most atrocious Hindi in the worst possible accent, like really mangling it. Indians, of course, always want to get their accent just right. So if you are traveling abroad or whatever, we make sure we learn to pronounce words just right. That's not usually reciprocated. Okay, so her neighbor is from Uttar Pradesh. She owned 3 buffaloes, right? So it's almost like a patch of village existing right in the middle of the city. Right? She's got her buffalo shed, and so Reena practiced her Bombay Hindi on her neighbor, right? So now and then they have a little chat, aate jate. So there's a younger woman, there's a mother-in-law, the matriarch, who kind of sits there and smokes her bidis. What they are really interested in is this young woman who is visited a little too often by her boss, right? So Uttar says to no one in particular, that's her boss, right? So she's referring to this woman who lives on the first floor. The girl on the first floor, she's a kept woman. And the girl's neighbor, Chopra ji, wants her out. So Chopra ji also is morality police, doesn't want such goings on in a respectable Sharif neighborhood. So he wants her out. He says she's a bad girl. He does not want to live near a bad girl, says Uttar. Then she adds, she has nice clothes, at least 600 rupees for each salwar kameez. More than you can afford, says Uttar, and smiles. Yes, so the flip side to being a bad girl is also that you can, because of the generosity of your boyfriends, you can actually, live a rather lavish life. Reena wonders what Uttar made of Adam, who came to stay for 2 weeks before he went abroad. She wonders what Uttar makes of Jay, who brings his car to a halt just outside Uttar's door and then yells hi as Reena watches the little drama from her window. Right? So Reena clearly is someone who is breaking these rules all the time, unexpectedly so. At her age, for someone her age, but doesn't feel the need to conform, right? She's she wonders what her neighbors might be thinking, but at the end of the day, it doesn't stop her from doing exactly what she wants to do. Another letter which again talks about a very live issue, live today, even today, it kind of has been quite a recurrent sort of phenomenon of late, which is this objection or finding things in texts particularly objectionable. Yes, so history ki kitab mein, you've given too much space to the Mughals, that is objectionable, or you may have said something about some other patriotic figure, that is objectionable. Salman Rushdie, recently was attacked in sort of while giving a talk, in the middle of a crowded room. The person who attacked him, by the way, when asked later, did say he hasn't actually read anything by Rushdie, right? But he's still he's very offended. So when he was asked on what basis were you offended, why were you so outraged that you took this drastic action? There was no real answer he could give to that, except that he's hurt, right? It bothered him. He's offended. Rushdie, of course, has written a great deal about this, and this, what he calls this fundamental right to offend. He says everyone has the right to offend another person. I have the right to say something that you may be offended by, right? You may not like it. That's all right. That's all right. You don't have to like every single thing I say. But that cannot mean that you would, go and sort of start physically harming me for having said that. Right? You can argue back. Right? You can try to prove your case. You can argue as much as you want using words, right? Because here the medium is words, no? So how can the response to one kind of medium be a completely different kind of medium? Right? How can a knife or a gun be the answer to words? Here now Rina is telling Adam about one such incident. Looks like all of us on the Board of English Studies will be in jail soon. Some journalist whose name I've never heard of wrote to the police, who wrote to the Vice Chancellor, who wrote to the Board of Studies to say that there are some obscene words in Arvind's anthology. This is an anthology of Indian English poetry. It's edited by Arvind Krishna Mehrotra. Okay, and this came out in the 1990s. So apparently there are some obscene words in it, and that we are corrupting young minds and should be prosecuted. Did I corrupt you, sweetness? So again, that hint that he is younger. He has he's a younger lover.
Does this mean he was a student of the?
It could. I'm not going there. It could mean he was a student. Some members have composed a long letter explaining the nature and function of literature and given it to the Vice Chancellor to give to the police. Right. So now they have responded. The Board of English Studies has responded by saying that literature cannot be, regulated by such narrow sort of laws and rules. So, there's been a response. And I mean, I cannot tell you the number of times such incidents have taken place, right? Where somebody has not liked the use of a certain word, and therefore the response to that is that this book should be banned because it has a corrupting influence. So he's I'd mentioned this yesterday. She says she had lunch with his mother, which again seems to highlight the fact that this fellow is probably pretty young. Don't be depressed about not writing these days. How can you with so much coursework? I'll write again soon. I must stop phoning. The last bill was catastrophic. What is this little para? Tell us. He's not replying to her letters. He busy. He's busy with his coursework. Yeah. Also, that she's calling him quite a bit. Right? So the last phone bill was enormous. Right? So there is, there is this imbalance. He may have been, quite besotted with her before he left, right? Because she says he had come and he'd spent 2 weeks with her and so on. But things change. Distance changes people, and relationships do get affected by distance, right? So he has everything new going for him. Assuming he is a PhD, a grad student now at an American university, right? He has a lot going on, a lot of new things to do. While her life is more or less stagnant. Yes, so you can see that that imbalance in their interaction. Now we are only seeing her side of the interaction, but through that, one can guess. And as she tells us, nothing much happened to her these days. And this is what do you write to people? So this whole tradition of Christmas letters, when once a year, where you send Christmas greetings, and it's usually accompanied by a letter where you basically give your news or your family's news. What major things have happened to you during that year. But she wonders what she has to say in her Christmas letters. There doesn't seem to be much, right? Especially this is what was there to say really when one wrote after a year. So that's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? When you meet someone rarely, one would think that you'd have much more to say to them because you've met after such a long time, right? There should have been so much that has happened in that interim, and there should be that much more to tell them. But it often turns out that we have much more to say to the people we meet every day, right? And not that much to say to people we meet rarely. And that's of course because there is much more in common. You share much more with the people you meet on a daily basis. And so as she says, what was there to say really if you write to someone once a year? Dear Mrs. Dr. Walsh, dear Mrs. Mason, how are you? Are you well? I'm well. Fascism is alive and well. And so there's nothing really has changed. The world is going to pot as it always was. And Baki life is continuing. So, what is there to say? Besides, nothing much happened to her these days. She would soon be counting the years to her retirement. She took a bus to the station and then a train into town and then another bus, 6 days of the week. Mondays and Saturdays were the worst, 3 lectures in a row. It wasn't the classes really. Once inside the classroom, she was more herself than at any given time. So she loves her work. Right? She does get tired of the routine, but once she's actually inside the workplace, inside the classroom, she finds that a very sort of transformative sort of experience. In fact, and she enjoys that. They expected something, and she wanted to give it to them. Right? So she really is the true quintessential teacher. Right? Where she loves to share what she knows. And she feels that the class, the audience is receptive. They want to know, they want to learn. It's a waste of time teaching literature to the young, a writer had once said to her. Not true. Not always true. Why would someone say this? It's a waste of time teaching literature to the young. As a general statement, why would somebody?
Maybe because writing is not that lucrative of a job.
Because he believes that they can't grasp it.
I think because there is no constructive criticism from students. Like they can't think deeply about subject because they don't have enough literature in their repository or something. Like, they've not read enough literature. So if you read enough literature over time, then you are able to analyze what is good and what is not.
That they're not able to grasp it. That's a common kind of perception. However, the world, I mean, we know that there are thousands of undergrad courses in literature, right? So there are plenty of young people who are studying and being taught literature. But yes, this perception that literature, perhaps to really understand it, or to really kind of grow by, through your reading of literature, you need to have a certain level of maturity, or that you need to be a more kind of experienced person. Perhaps you need to have lived life a little more, in depth, which it's not possible for a young person to do. However, she disagrees, right? Because she has actually found this teaching of young people to be very kind of fulfilling. She feels like she transforms into a better person when she enters the classroom. After teaching, after she comes home, she came home and flopped on the cane mat and turned on the air conditioner and read an undemanding novel or napped. So there is, you were talking about time yesterday, remember? We were talking about the chronotope. So see how time works at these two levels, no? There is this one level of something happening, right? Some conversation happening, some incident happening. She's going on the train and this happens, or she goes to take a cab and this happens. Right? So there is time in that sense of events taking place. But there is also time in the sense of the routine, right? What you normally do, what life is normally like, right? So there it's not about an incident or an encounter that has just taken place, but a steady, long view, of what generally happens. And here in this story, it moves in and out, right? This narrative uses both senses of time, both kinds of time. Yeah? So here this is now the usual, right? She comes back, relaxes, reads some simple, fun novel perhaps. With the medication, everything was at one remove. Now this, she doesn't tell us what the medication is for, but one can guess that it may be some kind of antidepressant, especially since she says everything was at one remove. That's generally the side effect of antidepressant medicines, that everything just becomes a little muted, a little duller.
Maybe because of her arthritis.
But painkiller doesn't affect your perceptions in this way. I don't know, maybe. Everything was at one remove. One had to be at one remove, or one would go mad or madder, depending on your point of view. Right? So as a lot of us might think that she's already mad, so in that case, then she would go madder. What to do about Ashok, the bright-eyed boy from the slums who paid everyone's electricity and telephone bills for a small sum, till his eyes got brighter and brighter, the voices in his head louder and louder, and now she says, Ashok, don't you remember me? And he just goes by. So I think she is talking about some kind of mental issue, right? And this young man who she has actually seen deteriorating in front of her, and she's kind of so it does seem like there is there is some kind of mental health issue here. Okay, we skip a couple of sections. The taxi drivers and shopkeepers address her as auntie. Right, so this also is another, it's kind of a new phase of life, right, when suddenly you're not, you've entered that demographic now, your auntie, your uncle. All women of a certain age are addressed as auntie. Actually, there are no women here. All are ladies or ladies, right? That's generally the pronunciation, no, ladies. So all are ladies or ladies. She cannot remember when she graduated from sister to auntie. And now the occasional fellow says Maji. So now things are even worse. The grey is showing in her hair. Sometimes they mistake Vera for her daughter. Vera we know is her friend, right? But so Vera must look much younger, or maybe Vera is much younger, or whatever. But they mistake her for her daughter. This annoys her and amuses Vera, understandably. My dear, one of the nuns had said to her in the kindest way possible in her last year of college, you must marry or become a nun. Otherwise you will be lonely when you are old and there will be no one to look after you. Yes, so as a Catholic, probably not a practicing Catholic, but still someone who was born as a Catholic, to someone like her there are these two options, right, according to traditional wisdom. That you need a community, you need people. So either you find it in married life, or you find it in this religious community, right? Join a convent, become a nun. But you need to do one of the two things. Now, she is someone who has chosen to do neither, right? So she's kind of walking this middle path, dealing with loneliness, no doubt. But also, there seems to be no doubt at all that she is someone who relishes her freedom. Right? There is, she may be alone, but she is very much her own person, right? And someone who seems to enjoy the life that she's living. Le Saga Julien, right? So this is another old lover, another ex-lover, and look at the way she introduces it. Le Saga Julien. What does it suggest? Does she sound terribly kind of perturbed or sad about it? The contrary, no? It's another of those episodes. Another of those episodes in her life, right? It's not something that bothers her at all. And this light, almost flippant tone in which she introduces it, La Saga Julien. The only time she had come close to marrying, it was hard to tell now if he had lost his nerve or she hers. So it didn't happen, and it's hard to even really untangle that thread and try to see who was the one who backed out first, or who was the one who had doubts first. She had not kept her silk brocade wedding saree. She exchanged it one day for 2 stainless steel containers with one of the women who trade in these things for old clothes. There are, or at least used to be, these women typically who come around. They still probably do in smaller towns, and you can give them your old clothes and they'll give you bartans in exchange, right? So she exchanged her wedding saree, or what would have been a wedding saree, for 2 containers. She still has the stainless containers, one for sugar and one for tea. It wasn't too bad a bargain. The silk had developed brown spots from being unused, and where can one go in Bombay in silk brocade anyway? Too corny. The containers are on a shelf in the kitchen within easy reach, and every day she bungs in the tea and the milk and water and 2 spoons of sugar and makes her jungly tea and smokes 6 cigarettes per mug. After that, she is ready for the day. Right? So this past experience, which may have been traumatic or sad at some point, has now there is no trace of any of that attached to it. Right? In fact, she appreciates those the containers that she got. She really kind of values them much more than that old saree. Another conversation. So these reflections are kind of punctuated by conversations. With a range of people. This is her bai now. The bai is talking about her own fears. She's living in a kacha house. She would like to make it a more permanent structure. She has a young daughter who's growing, and the bai is worried about her. The Bai divides the world into people who are educated and those who are not. It is normal for those who cannot read and write to have drunken husbands who beat them and thin dal for dinner. Right? So this is the Bai's worldview. This is free indirect speech. Again, right? It's written in the narrative voice, but the perspective is that of the Bai. Right? For whom the world is divided into two people. For women are divided into of two kinds: the educated ones and the uneducated ones. So those who can't read or write, women of her class, for them it's normal life means that you're going to get beaten up. You don't have good food to eat, and you have drunk husbands. But she says today Meera Madam was crying, and she is an educated woman. She says with awe, even educated women cry, even educated people cry. Now, of course, the awe or whatever, the surprise is not for educated people crying, but the surprise is that this Meera Madam, whoever she is, has probably been beaten up by her husband as well, right? And the Bai is shocked. She's shocked to see that. So this very, not much is made of this, right? There's no discussion of this. But it's a very kind of strong comment on a society where at the end of the day, yes, education matters, but it still doesn't change everything, right? And the status of women, even if they are educated, often is, men do believe that they can treat women badly for no other reason other than they happen to be women, right? And that you have a right to treat them badly. Reena would like to tell the Bai about educated people, but does not know where to begin. Anyway, the Bai says, I told Meera Madam to pray to Don Boss. I always went to pray to Don Boss before I got married. And then, of course, she realizes Don Boss is Don Bosco, the church. Yes, she says Don Boss. Another kind of, encounter in which we see her, the microphone ear. She has a really good ear for, people's accents, people's speech, and the very wide range of accents and speech you can hear in a city like Bombay. Right, the sort of less educated speech, the danger look that the Bai talks about. So here now she's traveling. She goes to get her rail pass renewed, and there's a little exchange there. Her photograph is an older one, and she obviously doesn't look like that picture anymore because her hair is white. So the clerks are now kind of murmuring to each other. Is there something wrong with my ID card? She asks irritably. Madam, one of them says, photo is old. You are not looking like this now. This very Indian style of speaking, the use of the present continuous tense. You are not looking like this now. What difference does it make? She asks with even more irritation. Before they can reply, the man behind her in the queue pipes in. If accident is happening, how will they identify cops? Oh, so that she hadn't thought of that. The clerk then says, this time I am giving, the clerk says, but next time I am not giving, right, the pass. Okay, she says, I'll change the photograph. Accident is definitely happening, she thinks. For reasons that escape her and everyone else, there are people who think it amusing to throw stones at the trains. In the last few months, several commuters have lost an eye, and at least one was killed by the force of the stone. And since the day bombs exploded all over Bombay, commuters are alarmed by unexpected noises or the first sign of smoke. Seeing a flame, some women had once jumped out of the train, only to be killed by a train racing down the parallel track. Yes, so this is again, we are back to post riots Bombay, right? The post Babri Masjid phase, and how the situation is tense, and people randomly, there are these random acts of violence that nothing, they seem totally inexplicable, but they do take place. A little sort of encounter with two urchins, two street children that she sort of notices and reaches out to. And again, not much happens, but you can see that it means a lot to her. That sort of wordless exchange almost, or they hardly say anything to each other, but it has meant something to her. You also know this is someone who does reach out, who has made it a habit to reach out to those who need help, whether it's children on the footpath, whether it's injured dogs or cats, or whatever it may be. So as she moves back, she catches sight of two small boys gazing at the violently colored cakes in the railway tea stall. So she goes up to them and asks, "Would you like something to eat?" So she asks them to choose something for themselves. The stall attendant gives them two pink cakes wrapped in newspaper and 2 glasses of tea. They sit down on the platform floor and unwrap the package. Will they be there the next day at the same time, on the off chance that she is here? Right? So she hopes that she may meet them again. They may come again at that time to the same place, because they know that she takes the train at this time. But they are not, right? She doesn't meet them again. Trying again to tell herself what. I think there is this is someone who tends to get quite affected by the state of the world around her, right? By seeing poverty and deprivation around her, it affects her, right? She can't be blind to it and walk on. So she's kind of now trying to talk to herself about things she can do to cheer herself up, right? To make herself feel better. When all else fails, try a pedicure. She can go to the beauty parlor. She can get a shampoo and so on. A bright pink pastry to counter human history. One fledgling parrot rescued from the crows. A starving pup rescued from the unforgiving street. Right? So she's kind of tortured by the ineffectualness of these small acts of kindness. So remember the conversation she was having with her class earlier, where the question, what's the use? Right? How the problems are just so big that these individual acts of kindness cannot really solve them. Right? So you can buy someone a pink pastry to stop them from starving at that moment, or you can rescue a parrot and take it home, or you can try to look after a sick puppy. But is that does that really solve the the great sort of misery and pain that exists in the world? Right? So that's something that is a constant concern in her mind. So even as she routinely performs these acts of kindness, she is kind of constantly racked by this sense of the ineffectiveness of it in the larger scheme of things. Of course, there are 5 million organizations doing 5 million things, right? So of course there are all these NGOs and other organizations that help people, and so of course there are. Of course, Chicken Soup is full of stories about human good. Is it Chicken Soup for the Soul? That series? So full of those nice feel-good stories, that you can read and feel very kind of, it warms the heart. Of course, there's Tukaram and Green. So these are her favorite authors. Tukaram is the saint poet, the bhakti poet, like Kabir. There's Graham Greene, a writer she's very fond of. So she's talking about the things that, you know, that do exist, that do make you feel good. You know, you can go to a salon and get a pedicure. You can read these wonderful authors and so on. Of course, she loves a good meal, a pedicure, and gossip with friends. So then, mad or what? Right? So here you can see this is she's kind of trying to talk some sense to herself, right? It's like you would say to your friend, you know, a friend who's feeling very depressed. You would say, listen, I mean, there is so much to be happy about in this world. You know, are you mad or what? I mean, how can you allow yourself to go into this depression? So again, nowhere is this spelled out, but we do see, you know, someone who is kind of very precariously poised on, you know, on this sort of edge of depression, right? There are many things around her that bring her close to that sensation of being, you know, being swallowed up by the sense of futility, right? The futility of all of it, and she's constantly having to, you know, move herself away, push herself away from that cavern, you know, from the abyss. Of course, there is a line from her poem, you know, where she talks about the abyss, right, and constantly kind of on the verge of falling into the abyss. So this pup that she had rescued, you know, she remembers that pup and how she took care of it, but it died. It died after 4 days. The first day it climbed into her lap, the second and the third it walked around the flat and sniffed at everything, the fourth day it died. Yes, and there is, I mean, there is something really kind of upsetting and unsettling about a little creature who comes into your life and you know, kind of becomes a part of your life in a sense, but then suddenly dies, leaves. We are back to Atar, her neighbor, with whom she has nothing in common. Yes, I mean, clearly this is a sort of rural, semi-educated woman, housewife, who gossips and, you know, checks out what's going on in the locality. But again, this unexpected kind of connection. You know, you don't expect it to have anything in common with this person, but suddenly, you know, you find that you do. There is something that you can relate with each other. So the mother-in-law, this old woman who hangs around there, your Bai told me the puppy you were looking after died, she says. Yes. It's very painful, isn't it? The mother-in-law says. I've looked after dogs and parrots too, but I couldn't bear it when they were old. Yes. She is touched that Atar's mother-in-law has talked to her like this. Yes, so again, absolutely nothing in common between these two women, between their lives, between the the language that they speak even, but you know, that reaching out, the reaching out by one person and kind of trying to connect, trying to comfort, right, which gives her something. The changes in the city. She goes to the Sea Lounge. This is you know, that huge hotel in Bombay. You must have been. Have you been to Bombay? Yes, and that the Taj overlooking the gateway of India. So that's she says that's her favorite place for coffee. It used to be very affordable. It used to cost like $4 or whatever. Now it's 40, and I'm sure currently now it's, God only knows how much it must cost. But you know, the changes in the city, the beautiful old bungalows are now gone. They've been replaced by high-rise buildings. I mean, that's true of anywhere, not just the big cities, but even the towns. You know, the middle-sized towns are also you know, growing in this way. She used to enjoy exploring bits of Bombay she did not know, restaurants that were not fashionable, but the glossies had changed all that. The glossies? What are glossies?
Magazines,
Magazines, magazines about those,
reviews.
yes, but also, that have lots of pictures and that nice glossy paper, right, which kind of, where to eat, where to go for a night out, those sort of magazines. So that, she says, has changed everything, because what used to be very ordinary family run and very affordable restaurants serving good fresh food have now been gentrified, right? So what does this do? It basically raises prices and makes things available only to an elite minority. Right? So that actually is the paradox, no? Of so fresh fish in a coastal city like Bombay should be easily and cheaply available, but ironically it isn't, right? Because the freshest and best of it is taken off, for by the elites, right? In fancy restaurants or in wealthy homes, and they are out of reach now. Ordinary people can't afford them, right? So that's this is sort of how capitalism changes the world, right? Where the things that should be most accessible to you, things that are growing around you, are not available to the local person, right? They are available at high prices elsewhere. More development of the relationship with Adam. I mean, it's self-explanatory. Thanks, dear Adam. Thanks for your lovely long call. It must have cost you a bomb. Yes, I was a little hurt. You weren't thrilled that I might be mad enough to come and see you. But really, I shouldn't drink after 9. And then, of course, she tries to sort of step back. I couldn't come to the States, even if you had the time, because there's no one to look after the parrots. So I couldn't have come. So what has happened, of course, is that she has offered to go and visit him. She wants to go and visit him, and Adam has not encouraged that. Right? Adam has not really been very excited about that prospect. So she has realized that things have changed between them, and now, of course, she's trying to save face by saying, वैसे भी मैं, it's not like I could have come anyway, and so on, right? But you can see the hurt, you can see the sense of rejection. The taxi driver that we just talked about, she meets him again. It's a comforting feeling knowing so many people who live in her area. She can't imagine living anywhere else in India, let alone abroad. Yes, so this community, this strange sort of community that she has kind of created, right? And it kind of, members of that community come, they pop up sporadically. But she does know that they are there. Right? They know her and remember her, and they have shared enough, there is that kind of body of experiences that they have shared, whether it is taking care of a sick dog or anything else. So Queen's Diamonds, this is the next one. We are coming to the end. The building that she bought, so she's telling us about, sorry, not the building she bought, the apartment that she bought in Queen's Diamonds. How it came about that she bought an apartment here. Good grief, how on earth would she tell her friends she lived in something with a name like that? Right? This tacky sort of name, Queen's Diamonds. Forget the tired irony of the garbage heap at the gate and the broken open gutters choked with the thin blue and pink plastic bags. So the building, of course, has this grand name, but there's nothing else grand about it, right? It's filthy and disgusting. A redevelopment of what used to be a chawl, her mother had said when she rang her. What sort of people will you have for neighbors? Yes, so obviously not educated middle class professionals, right? Well, she could tell her, they are busy enough to leave me alone. Yes, so that's all she wants from her neighbors, right? People who are living their lives and should leave her alone to live her life. Happens in this city. One of the reasons why she puts up with it. Where else could she go? Everything was here, though it wasn't a lot. Right? So she's sort of wholly aware of the limitations of her life, but she has come to a stage of acceptance, right? and acceptance of those limitations. Right? So everything was here, though it wasn't a lot, and yet it's everything. Right? It may not be a lot, but it's enough. Dear Adam, you're keeping all my letters in case you decide to write a biography of me when I'm ever so famous? What an appalling idea. Whatever you do, don't tell the truth. And no, I will not write down what I remember of my life for you. I'd rather forget it. It's a bit like that bus of ours which goes round and round. I remember a line from a poem. I head for the abyss with monotonous regularity. So this line, you recognize it? It comes in that poem, right? So she's referring to her own poem. Adam has by now, he looks like he's really kind of moved on. He's not really talking like her lover anymore, but more like a kind of fan, a disciple. He says he will write a biography of hers, if she becomes famous. The story, if you can call it that, it kind of comes to a close in this very ordinary sort of way, right? Because nothing has happened, so there is nothing to be concluded. Yes, but there is, one catches a glimpse into this character's consciousness, and we'll just read the last few lines to get a sense of what of how she's feeling, basically. The sun is blazing when she gets off the bus back in her lane. Stray dogs are napping under parked cars. Sparrows are frisking around in the pools of water. The chemist's assistant is dozing under the peepal tree. It begins to rain hard around midnight. At some point, it is cool enough for her to pull a bedsheet over. At daybreak, she lies awake under the sheet, listening to the cock crow and the crow's caw and the clink of bottles as the milkman arrives. It's all right, this life, she thinks, all things considered. So, it's an unspectacular kind of ending, right? There's no climax or anything. Nothing has happened. It's not like Adam has come back and declared love for her, or something else has happened in her life. But there is a sense of contentment. Right? This is someone who is content with her life. She knows it's not perfect. She knows there are many things lacking. But there is an acceptance and a sense of contentment. Right? Which is why, yesterday when we started reading this, we kind of looked at two studies in loneliness. We looked at John in the Golden Gate, and we looked at this woman here. And you can see the difference. Right? This is an older person, right? She's not looking for anything. John was, and John's problem was how to find what he was looking for. Right? She's not looking. She has kind of reached a stage of equanimity. Right? Things may not be perfect, things may not be wonderful, but they are good the way they are. and the city, she's kind of ready to take whatever the city has to offer, right? The grime, the filth, the violence, as well as these chance encounters, right? These chance encounters that can be very meaningful, in this very small sort of way, but can really give you a sense of being part of a larger community. Now, we have a few minutes left, and I just want to quickly look at this poem. A, because she refers to it. B, because like the story, the poem is also kind of autobiographical, right? So here are two autobiographical narratives. And I say autobiographical narratives, not autobiography, right? Because if it were an autobiography, it would be called that, right? Here it is still being presented as a story about a character called Reena. But we do see that there are many aspects of D'Souza's own life in the story. Now, we don't have to go through this poem line by line. We don't have to go through it carefully. But you've read it. What is the what do you think is the attitude of the speaker of this poem towards the world? How does this speaker feel towards the world, or what does she think about the world?
Very negative. Very negative.
Very negative. What else? What are the images? What do they make you think of? I thought the whole world was trying to rip me up, cut me down, go through me with a razor blade. The images of great violence, no? The word. It's this. It's like me against the world, right? And both of us are kind of caught in perpetual battle, unending battle, unending hatred for each other, because she thinks the world is out to get her, right? And look at the absence of punctuation. It's trying to rip me up, cut me down, go through me. Yeah, so just like these compelling, overwhelming acts of violence with a razor blade. Yes. Then I discovered a cliche. That's what I wanted to read. What's the cliche? I suppose the cliche is that you only get what you want, or some such thing. But where she believes the world is out to attack her, but actually it's only a mirror image of what she herself wants to do to the world, right? To cut it open, to destroy it. So these are images of great violence and anger, yes, against the universe. I killed my father when I was 3. Her father did die when she was a very small child. But to put it like this, I killed my father when I was 3. I've muddled through several affairs and always come out badly. I've learned almost nothing from experience. That's what elders are always telling us, no, parents. Learn from our experience. That's why kabhi hum itna samjhate hain. Don't make the mistakes that we made. That's why we are telling you this. Here is someone who's just rejecting that completely. Not only others' experiences, I've learned nothing from my own experiences also. I head for the abyss with monotonous regularity. That's a great line. Heading for the abyss is like this cataclysmic thing to happen, no? Your life has been destroyed utterly and completely. destroyed. But here the last three lines, with monotonous regularity. Right? This is what my life is. Every day I have this crisis. I have some crisis or the other. Every day feels like I am on the brink of destruction. But then that I recover and then go right back to that same feeling. So there is no one grand tragedy in my life. Right? My life is a series of unending tragedies or unending moments of crisis. Right? I head for the abyss with monotonous regularity. My enemies say I am a critic because really I am writhing with envy and anyway need to get married. वो तो है ही, right? If you're a single woman, there is only one thing that you need to do, which is to get married. Right? That is society's perception. Everything that is wrong with you is because you are a single woman, and all of that will become right once you get married. Right? So that is of course what her enemies say. My friends say I am not entirely without talent. Yes, I have tried suicide. I tidied my clothes but left no notes. I was surprised to wake up in the morning. So, somebody who is not even fully committed to the idea of suicide. And that's kind of the ultimate failure. Right? When you even fail at killing yourself. Right? You have failed at living life, but you also fail at killing yourself. So it's very, very, very dark, very angry, very violent, this poem. And this, the date is not given, but this came out, this was in her first collection of poetry, and it came out in 1979, this poem. Danger Log, which we are reading, came out in 98, 99, something like that, right? What was it? 2001 it was published. So you see the huge difference, no? See the difference in the attitude now. This is a person who has found fulfillment in her life, right? That blinding anger, that fury, that sense of utter kind of rejection, wanting to reject the world around her, wanting to destroy it, wanting to destroy herself. All of that has transformed into a far more accepting, far more humane, kind, generous acceptance of the world as it is, with all its flaws, and of her own self. With all the limitations, with all the problems. So I thought this was it made for a very nice, interesting contrast in the development of not only her development not only as an artist but also as a person, right? And how things change, how things have changed for her as she has grown older. So yes, that's all about Eunice D'Souza. We'll move on to a small novel, a very short novel which will be posted online. It's originally in Kannada but has been translated into English. Has anyone read it? It's called Bhajar Gochar. Interesting name. So we'll post it online. At least read the first half of it. It's not very long, but read at least the first half before you come to the next class. Right?
Second year, madam. The complaint कितने लाते हैं? अपने complaint कितने
अटेंडेंस हुआ भी है
लाइफ पीरियड ऑफ ड्रग है तो कह रहा ड्रग की लाइफ साइकिल बताओ। मैं कह रहा लाइफ पीरियड ना, कह रहा हाँ वही एक सात थे, एक वो साउथ इंडियन था, एक डॉक्टर था, उसके बता दिए फिर 12 अच्छा वो दोबारा